What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is another Hip Hop Now podcast bonus episode brought to you by the producers of this podcast over at patreon.com/hiphopnow. The link to find out all about it is in the description of this episode. Very important. But nevertheless, to keep things going, after more than 20 years in production, the iPod is finally dead. Now, I know some of y'all are saying, what, iPod? Who owns one of those? Who buys one of those? I didn't even know they were making them still. Yes, they were. This is an article from PCMagazine.com. It was called What's the Best iPod Ever? Google it. It's pretty good. Released in May of 2022. If you're from the future, get your ass out of here. But nevertheless, this is how they open up the article to give you some context. Before Apple was the iPhone company, it was the iPod company. Apple's portable music player dominated its markets for most of its heyday between 2001 and 2010. While the last classic iPod was released in 2007, the name continued with the iPod Touch line, phoneless iPhones that Apple is now finally discontinuing after more than 20 years. Now, to yourself, you're saying, because I'm going to put words in your mouth, well, why would I care at this point in time in 2022, which is the future? More than 20 years. I say this because the iPod was a game changer for a number of reasons. The precursor to the iPhone, which, no doubt about it, killed your little sidekick, killed BlackBerry. It became the standard. Android came along, and now we have what we have today. But what makes this more significant, in my opinion, is that the iPod's popularity was so high for a music player that you got stuff like the Zune and whatever other cheap versions of something that came out. I still own the Zune. I still have one. Don't ask me why, but I do. It's weird, but I have it. But what's significant for you who are listening and myself, as a music fan, I sort of used to daydream about the days that I could walk the streets of New York City, of Brooklyn, New York, with all my music with me. Let me tell you a quick story. So when I was in high school, right, I got a CD Walkman. Before that, I had a tape deck Walkman, like, you know what I'm saying, like everybody else, and I had it for a while. It was a little while before I actually got a CD version of that. But it was like the thing I needed to take with me every day. Like I'd be heated if I forgot my Walkman, cassette player, or it's a CD version. I would be upset that I left it at home, because listening to music was part of my journey, right? I had to walk a couple of blocks, and obviously you walk enough on your way to school and to home from school, you're seeing the scenery. I mean, obviously, sometimes there's some things that happen, a couple fights break out, stuff like that, it's for you to pay attention to. But there was nothing like taking that walk and zoning out to an album. For me, albums that stood out in my high school days with my Walkman: Black Moon's Into the Stage, EPMD, Business Never Personal. You know what I'm saying? Like Showbiz and AG, Runaway Slave, Ice Cube, Death Certificate. These were albums that accompanied me. Even albums that I bought that I wasn't as excited about. Straight from the Sewer, Das Effects. Not a bad album, by the way. It felt like it gave me personal time to really sink into it, and I loved it. But there were times where, I had to decide, how many tapes am I actually going to bring with me in this big book bag filled with books and everything else? How many CDs can I bring with me? before I had a little pouch where I could put a couple of CDs in there. I didn't have that. I had to bring the CD. I usually kept a CD in the CD player and brought one in a case so I could at least bring two. And I know people who would bring their whole CD collection with them. That just wasn't happening with me, not with the travel I had. And I always wondered, like, man, if there was just a time where you could just have all your music with you at all times. And I remember when the iPod first came out, and I was a grown man when it came out, and I was so desperate to get one, but I never did. I've never owned an iPod, but I knew people who did. And I never really, because I didn't really have a computer like that. You know what I'm saying? In 2001, I think me and my wife bought a computer for the first time for both of us to have in the house. And you know them AOL days, everything was slow. You know what I'm saying? And there wasn't a lot of hard drive space. So it wasn't like CDs weren't the thing, right? I didn't have a lot of digital music to fill up an iPod, so it didn't make sense for me to get one at the point in time. And when I was getting really close to buying one, they dropped the iPhone. And I had a BlackBerry back then. And I was like, wow, I'm fitting a couple of songs on my BlackBerry and, and loving the fact that it's all in this one device where I could answer emails and phone calls and browse some stuff on the internet, and take a picture, and then have a couple of my songs here, and even have some videos and stuff on there. You know what I'm saying? I had Killer Season, the movie, on there. Don't judge me. But you know what I'm saying? That was a time, but the iPod started it all. And the thing is, it was an era for people between the Napster days, right? Loading all that music, an album that's not even out yet. You have it, and it's right there on your iPod. You hook your iPod up to, somebody's stereo system. Now you're like a DJ. It was just ahead of its, well, let's not say ahead of its time. It just was the beginning of something new. It was just a special time to be a music fan. And I know for me personally, and I'm not going to hold you too long on this, I know that I'm thankful as a music fan, because when I say it's the precursor to things, it just made things about traveling with music, about devices that were portable, where you can take your whole library with you. I mean, now we have streaming services where not only can you take your whole library with you on a device, but you can stream it. Or you have access to a lot of music, like damn near a whole record label's history, or artist's entire catalog. Now, we're not going to get into, how much they paying people or whatever, but nevertheless, as a music fan, these were exciting times. And I was also, and still am, a technology dude. And again, for those who don't understand, the iPod has been around for more than 20 years. And my son is 20. And I tell him all the time, yo, there was a time where you were not running around with that much stuff on a device. You didn't have a device. There wasn't a cell phone. And when there were cell phones at that point in time, you didn't have your entire music collection. You didn't have connections to all these people through services and videos and blah, 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 blah. And that was what was so magical about the iPod, because I remember the first time, like, I didn't own an iPod, but I bought my wife one. And this was before the iPhone. And I remember thinking, I think it's time for me to get one after seeing hers. Because the first time, we had to drive somewhere far. And I knew that her device, her iPod, she had the mini, the little slim joint. But the first time I knew that, yo, she has like all these albums on here, and we just plugging this little thing up and letting it rock. We can listen to what we want when we want. We're not like looking, how many, you got a 16 CD changer. We're not like, yo, get the tapes out the back. Yo, get my CD book. and look through it. We used to do that. We used to literally, both of us, have a CD book, her CD book and my CD book, and just choose what it was we wanted to listen to. Those things are in my garage collecting dust. I'll end it with this to give y'all some context on why I am appreciative of where we are in technology and music. If you've listened to my podcast before, you've heard me say a million times how once upon a time when I had my blog, hiphoppolitic.com, I wrote a story about digitizing my entire music library. And what made me do that was me watching where technology was going at the time. You know what I'm saying? Because the Zoom had came out, and I'm like, oh, okay, iPods and Zooms, and this is the way to go. This is where music is going to be next on these types of devices. And I remember that feeling, right? Because now I'm going to work. I remember that feeling of wanting to drive somewhere, you know, and rock out to an album, or more importantly, make a playlist, right? Make my own best of whoever and ride out to that. After I spent all weekend gathering songs, I could just use it to listen to as I'm going to and from work. And as I took all my CDs and digitized them and put them in my iTunes library to load them up on my portable device, it was the thing I've always wanted, was to walk around with my music library as a music fan and listen to whatever it is I chose to. It's all about the soundtrack to your day. And the iPod was that for many people. It was escapism for some people, right? No different from when people wore headphones and they had record players, or they wore headphones and they had cassette players or CD players or MP3 players. No different. But the biggest difference is just the access to as much music as you would load up. What's your favorite memory of having an iPod, or even an iPod equivalent? Because let's keep it a buck. Apple set a lot of trends and everybody followed. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Rest in peace to the iPod, more than 20 years of greatness. We know at this point I'm ready to even buy one just to have it for nostalgia purposes, or as a little burner joint to put in the car or whatever. Have some music on it, not use my phone. You know what I mean? Please know that you can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. That's Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, or all of them. And please know this podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.